are you, and all that sort of jazz. A reasonably heavy news night tonight. I don't mean it's heavy, unpalatable, but heavy of some significance. And tonight Bill Peach will be calling, if he gets back from the ABC in time. I think we've just been on there about TDT, which is 25 years old, except it's not here. But then again, we celebrate the birthdays and deaths of composers who've been dead for hundreds of years, so why should I add that? And Annie Lennox, who is not responding to treatment, if you saw this program last night, will be singing a song tonight. She says she's regained her sense of humour. Obviously, she's found a mirror since yesterday. Well, our Prime Minister got down to basics when he brought up human rights and better relations between Australia and Indonesia today.
Mr and Mrs Keating ended their first day here at a formal banquet hosted by President Suharto. Mr Keating appearing a little off-put by an extremely loud rendition of the national anthem. The Prime Minister's speech was to be more than usually important, stressing the trade and commercial ties between the two countries and using that to put the human rights issue on the record.
These substantive links have enabled our governments to maintain a frank and constructive dialogue, especially during the past few months following the tragic events in East Timor last November.
The Indonesian leader's speech also emphasised the steadily improving political and diplomatic relationship, but it had a sting in its tail. Without once mentioning East Timor, President Suharto said comments and criticisms with the tendency of interfering in Indonesia's internal problems are just not acceptable. Today began with another very different formal ceremony. Escorted by two army generals, Mr Keating went to the memorial to the nation's heroes, a solemn wreath-laying ceremony. The Australian government has no intention of backing off in its concern about human rights in this country, especially in East Timor. It's just, sources say, going to be done behind closed doors. Human rights was raised again today, Mr Keating's first working session with President Suharto. At a later news conference, the Prime Minister said, so far, the relationship was developing well.
If the last day has been any measure of things, in terms of reception, it doesn't get much better than this.
Peter Harvey with the Prime Minister in Jakarta.
As is so often the case, a wrangle on either side in politics highlights the fragility of the leader's position. Mr Greiner could well be regretting he'd ever met a Mr Metherell.
Terry Metherell steps from his plane in Brisbane. The former MP on his way to Sydney, where the political storm over his job in the public service has Premier Greiner under more pressure than ever. Today, South Coast MP John Hatton announced he would move to censure the government when Parliament resumes next week.
Mr Greiner is in grave peril. His leadership is in question. His judgment is in question. Next Tuesday will be D-Day for Mr Greiner as leader, and possibly D-Day for the Greiner government.
It may not bring about the government's downfall, but John Hatton has made it clear Nick Greiner's position will be on the line if the Parliament delivers what will amount to a severe reprimand. So far, Mr Greiner enjoys the confidence of his ministers, who today appeared to close ranks, despite the Premier's admission last night that he hadn't consulted Cabinet before agreeing to Dr Metherell's appointment.
I have absolute confidence in the Premier and the way the Premier is handling this issue.
The opposition now claims Terry Metherell's job in the public service has the potential to cost taxpayers more than $1.7 million. But Labor frontbencher and QC Jeff Shaw says the government has the power to terminate Dr Metherell's contract without compensation under a little-used section of the Public Service Management Act.
Now, I acknowledge that it's an option rarely exercised over the years.
Now, former New South Wales Deputy Premier Pat Hills has died today, aged 74. There are two reports, either 74 or 75. The cause of death isn't known. He retired from State Parliament in 1988 after 34 years as an MP. He was the Lord Mayor before entering Parliament, and from 1959 to 1965 he was Deputy Premier under Mr Heffron. He led the party and the opposition from 1965 to 1968. So he died. Pat Hills, the former New South Wales Labor Deputy Premier, died today. Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia, is still in the news. Rival groups are fighting to try to take over the city. Muslims and Croatians have combined to repulse Serbian attackers.
Sarajevo this morning. Viz News cameraman Rob Saliers is shot in the arm as he photographs a new outbreak of fighting. Today's battleground is the hotel where the UN peacekeeping force and the press are headquartered. At dawn, Muslim forces began firing on this Serbian enclave that was supposed to be a safe zone. Mortar fire punctuating a British television report.
As they have done in the past, excuse me.
Fighting came yesterday to Sarajevo, Bosnia's capital, the way it never did to Croatia's capital, Zagreb. Sarajevo is the graceful city that hosted the 1984 Winter Olympic Games. But it is also the hot-tempered melting pot of Serbs, Muslims, and Croats, where World War I started. The fierceness of the fighting prompted one observer to say it made the flattening of regional Croatian towns look like Disneyland. At least 6 people died in Sarajevo yesterday. Serb militias backed by the Yugoslav army have been accused of trying to carve out for themselves a Serb state within Bosnia. But Muslim resistance, particularly in Sarajevo, has proved tougher than expected. But it is no match in the long run for Serb firepower, as Bosnia's Muslims find themselves being overrun town by town.
After the break on this program, we have some stories. New machines are possibly going to be all around Australia, and there'll be no ambiguity about what the machines are for, and there'll be no male chemist to talk to because they won't have any people inside them. Well, not immediately. Glad I said that. And you have to wait to find out what all that's about. I'm not going to elaborate. And I said, actually, it's quite good. That was quite clever. It's just that you don't know what it's about, and then later on you say, what was that he said? It was clever anyway, and I've got to tell you that. We'll have that story after the break.
It's good, clean fun. Mazda 121. You'll want one too.
Young lady. Yes, madam. I believe you have a pledge of absolute freshness for all your produce, meats, delicatessen and bakery items. Correct, madam. And if I'm not completely satisfied, you'll replace the items and refund my money without question. Indeed, madam. Well, I'm not. Look at this. Slightly bruised. We'll replace it immediately. And any others like it.
Look at this. I'm just not satisfied.
The fresh pledge from Coles. Replacement and your money back.
Seiko's Barcelona Scratch-a-thon. Try on a Seiko watch. Scratch to win a Seiko Olympic 8 watch instantly. Scratch to win one of hundreds of other great instant prizes. Win a trip for 2 to the Barcelona Olympics. Win an instant Seiko watch, instant prize, or trip to Barcelona in Seiko's Barcelona Scratch-a-thon. Race in and start scratching now.
Only at Ritz Jewellers, East Victoria Park and Phoenix Shopping Centre, Spearwood.
A burning rope and a death-defying stunt.
Call 911. The rope broke on Mike, I think.
Every second is precious.
I did not think he was going to survive.
Rescue 911, 7:30 Thursdays on Channel 9.
So Mr. Harris finally stopped suffering. To suggest that the execution by gas alone was punishment for his crimes is to ignore the waiting and the on-again, off-again machinations of the judicial system at work. The whole execution of Mr. Harris was not handled as many would have wished. Today, they had a post-mortem.
As the deadline for Robert Harris's execution came and passed, there was hope for the double murderer outside San Quentin prison last night.
We shall overcome someday.
We are not afraid.
Harris waited in a holding cell beside the gas chamber as two federal courts battled it out in a cross-country duel by fax and phone, debating whether the gas chamber was unconstitutional. All the while, Harris watched the TV updates as his fate was tossed from court to court.
It was the most macabre experience of my life. The whole thing had a kind of a dreamlike quality to it.
Finally, 4 hours after the original deadline, the Supreme Court ordered that Harris be put to death. In full view of witnesses, he was strapped into one of these chairs and the door was sealed.
I heard the phone ring. One of the families of the victims was heard to say, "Oh, God."
A lower court had won another stay of execution. Harris was unbuckled from the chair and taken back to the cell. Again, the stay was overruled. 2 hours later, Harris was finally put to death, mouthing the words sorry to the father of one of his teenage victims.
I'm satisfied that Harris has been punished for the crime that he committed.
For the first time in US history, the execution was videotaped by the Civil Liberties Council as proof the gas chamber is inhumane. With a murder rate that's long been out of control, California is now expected to push ahead with a spate of executions. Tonight, there's a renewed sense of fear among the 328 inmates on San Quentin's death row.
Life, of course, can be horrific sometimes. It looked like a typical day for a cement truck driver in Canberra today. He was attending a building site when he drove over a cardboard box. In it were two children, a boy aged 7 and a girl aged 4, playing. The children were killed and the despairing driver was taken to hospital in shock. There's not much more anyone can add. In Whitmore Square in Adelaide, St Luke's Anglican Church is still smouldering after a fire tonight. About 20 firefighters attended the blaze, and one is left wondering if God is in charge. It does seem unproductive for a house of God being allowed to burn down. Now, there's nothing very subtle about prophylactics. You people know what prophylactics are? They're people who tell the future from cards. Like they say, no, you've got to be kidding. But with AIDS being such an unbeatable invader, the niceties of life must take a back seat. The federal government is contemplating condom machines almost anywhere.
The proposal to put condoms in schools is only one of dozens made by a federal government committee on AIDS.
People will know condoms are an important part of Australia's HIV preventative strategy. Because no cure or vaccine for AIDS exists, condoms are central to safe sex education.
But it's already drawing criticism. Queensland Health Minister Ken Hayward wants no part of it.
There's no way, there's no chance of that happening. Isn't sensible, and it would not be countenanced at all by Queensland Health.
The idea of condom machines in school toilets or corridors is also guaranteed to draw flack from irate parents. The New South Wales Department of School Education says it prefers to remain neutral on the plan until it's studied the committee's report. Students are less ambivalent.
I think it's a good idea because the boys would use them.
I reckon it's a good idea because sometimes you get a bit embarrassed walking into a chemist and asking for a packet.
John Noble, The World Tonight.
Why would you willingly have a haircut like that? Isn't life crook enough as it is without adding to it? Perhaps it increases his chances. Now, in Victoria, they're up in arms, if that's the appropriate thing to say, over the to-be or not-to-be Anzac Day shopping.
Because Anzac Day this year falls on a Saturday, the usual public holiday restrictions on trading will apply. Large retailers are being forced to close, while small shops like bakeries, fruiterers, chemists, even bookstores will be allowed to trade. The retail lobby says this is unfair and will cause a loss of income and jobs amongst recession-affected traders. But RSL Chief Bruce Ruxton came to the aid of the government, condemning the retailers' campaign.
I think it's obscene. I tell you what, there'll be a war, there'll be another war,
if they're going to continue with the campaign to open up shops on Anzac morning, I can assure you.
I find it difficult to understand Mr. Ruxton's comment. I'm certain that those soldiers didn't die for restraint of trade or putting people out of employment.
There was a similar division of opinion amongst shoppers and retailers.
But I don't see why the shops shouldn't be open, because for the working people, it's a lot of the time the only chance they get to the shops.
Oh, bull. Most of the shops are open until 9 o'clock at night.
And it's always a holiday when it falls on a weekday. Why should it be on a Saturday?
It doesn't mean that you don't respect what happened in the war. We all still respect all of that, but it doesn't have to be that we all have to close as well.
But despite the demands of the retailers, Acting Premier Jim Kennan has already declared there will be no review of the decision and most shops will have to close this Saturday. But even Mr Kennan admitted the late notice of the Anzac Day arrangements meant Saturday may prove chaotic.
I suppose there's some confusion, isn't there, in people's minds that because it's a Saturday, it's not a public holiday.
And he says there's no time to change arrangements now.
I do like Anzac Day. I find something marvellous about the people who gave their lives. I think biblically it says no greater love has a man for a man who gives his life for someone he loves. What about giving your life for someone you don't love, someone you don't know? Still, I mustn't add to the Bible, otherwise I'll form my own religious sect and have lots of people at my church on Sunday and make lots of money. Come to think of it. Now, I've got a little facsimile here, right? This is for the Telegraph Mirror, which is a silly name for a newspaper, but that's a long story, the Sydney one. Now, I don't want to get parochial here, but this thing with Dr. Metherell, he was a politician in New South Wales, Liberal, wasn't he? Then he decided to become independent, which I questioned since he was voted in by people who assumed he'd be Liberal and belonged to that. However, then he left. Then he's got a job here which is about $110,000, which I wouldn't mind. It'd be great. And he was appointed, I gather, as this article has indicated, for tomorrow, on the 10th of April. Now, I don't know whether this year. Now, I don't know whether you've ever applied for a government job. They don't tend to do it in a great hurry. If you were to apply, say, for the ABC, 6 months later, you get a response saying, we have your letter. It's usually sent to your former address. However, if he's appointed on the 10th of April, right, you'd think his application would have gone in months earlier, 3 weeks, right? Now, his application apparently, according to tomorrow's Telegraph, and I'm depending on them, went in on the 10th of April, which I think really, rather than take the approach the Telegraph Mirror has that how could he have been put through so quickly, is it a setup? I'm suggesting that, in fact, the government, is now rationalising this whole application thing for government jobs, and it's good news for other people. You can be appointed on the day you apply. And I think, don't you think that's good? So, Mr. Greiner, I think you should feel very pleased that the system is so terrific. They're waiting for your call now. So tomorrow night you could have a new job, so ring and tell us about it. I think it's terrific. I don't know why the Telegraph's suggesting that, how could he do it in the one day? I think it's just cynical. I'm surprised at you, Telegraph Mirror. On you, Mr. Greiner. On you. Now, the finance news. The All Ordinaries Index is at its best in 6 weeks, with investors ignoring events in Tokyo, and they're all facing west, in fact, and taking heart from the next lot of economic figures to be released next week. They're eternal optimists, aren't they? In Tokyo today, the Nikkei Dow rose just a little. In London tonight, the FTSE 100 is down in early trading. Gold is steady. The Australian dollar hasn't changed much at all tonight in European trading. In fact, if you think about that Mr. Metherell thing, if his letters dated the 10th of April, he was appointed then, they would have to have rung him, wouldn't they? Isn't that nice of them? Hello, Mr. Metherell? Yeah, you've got the job. Oh, golly, I only posted this morning. You blokes are terrific. I think it's lovely. It makes me feel like a new woman. Now, while you and I probably had an average day, the various Mujahideen forces continue to threaten Kabul in their own aggressive way. There is the feeling that the first there will control the country, but there's also a trickle of optimism that peace is not yet impossible.
Moving down from the rain-soaked mountains that surround Kabul, the advance party of the Islamic fundamentalist army. These fighters are followers of Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, the most uncompromising of Mujahideen leaders. They've travelled hundreds of miles from the south of Afghanistan to fight what they see as a holy war. They proudly showed off their weapons. While other Mujahideen factions are now talking peace, Hekmatyar is demanding nothing less than the total surrender of the capital. Otherwise, they say, they'll launch the last great battle of the war to storm Kabul. Responding to such threats, the UN envoy to Afghanistan appealed to all rebel groups to join the peace talks.
We are almost there. Don't risk destroy the chance for peace. At the same time, I like to say to everyone, and I'm sure you will agree, and they will agree, that this is the time to promote tolerance and forgiveness. This is the time to refrain from revenge.
Today, the guns defending Kabul have been largely silent, waiting for the threatened assault and for the outcome of new UN-sponsored talks. In the new no man's land, villagers took advantage of the lull to go about their normal business, moving their herds out of what could soon be the next battlefield. The main routes into the city are now patrolled by a mixture of government troops and mujahideen, who've come together to form a defensive barrier to block the advance of the Islamic fundamentalist army. This army officer told us he's happy to stand alongside his former enemies. He said, "We're forming a line here as brothers to stop those who want to destroy Kabul." The UN envoy has been holding talks with several mujahideen leaders today. He believes he's now critically close to reaching agreement on a new mujahideen-dominated council to replace the government of former President Najibullah. Part of that agreement would include the safe exit of President Najibullah to join his family in India.
Great, the trees weren't even moving in that shot, did you notice that? I don't know how they do that. Now, how are things going with Zafarana, just below Mount Etna? We've been covering that fairly intensively, and to suddenly stop seemed to me rather strange. I said to my current producer, "What's happening?" He said, "I'll ring Italy." He mentioned Mr. Metherell's name and got through in 5 seconds. Hadn't even finished dialing the numbers. I said, "Yes, hello." Scientists and soldiers in Italy have used cement blocks and explosives to plug an underground river of lava flowing down Mount Etna. Now, the officials say it's still too early to tell if the village of Zafarana is definitely out. They're still in bed. It's too early. Can't tell. Too early. Italian explosives experts blew up a spur of the mountain, which sent the blocks into a natural opening of the river, forcing the lava out. I wish I knew what that means. Underground lava reaches temperatures of more than 100 degrees centigrade. You don't listen, do you? It's 1,000 degrees. Just checking. It moves fast and can emerge at a much lower altitude, which would engulf the village of 7,000 people. But it's on the surface. It comes into contact with cold air and land, and it then cools, slows and hardens. Gee, I wouldn't have known that. I'm so glad they wrote that. Golly, although I must admit, it doesn't always do it. How often does lava go into the water and it's steaming for ages? There you are. So they think they've plugged it, but in essence, it's too early to tell. Yeah. But we all hope the Zafaranis will win over. Now, Bill Peach has written a book about the 25 years of TDT. If you're interstate, you might not know who Bill Peach is, because each state had its own compere in the, from 67 onwards, and the ABC broke new ground then. Everyone else copied them, except this show. We copy no one. We'll have that shortly on this program.
The 323. It'll take you by surprise.
More than you expected, more than you could ask, more than only copper, more than only brass. Look again at copper art, there's a big surprise in store. Look again at copper art, where your dollar buys much more. Look again at copper art, there's a big surprise in store. Look again at copper art, we don't buy much more.
This is the man who makes Kleenex tissues. All our tissue products are made from plantation wood grown on tree farms and from sawmill waste. To clean the wood, we are replacing chlorine with oxygen-based bleaching. To find out more, read the environmental update on our packaging.
You working through lunch again?
Yeah. It's curried egg. I know, it's my favourite. Yeah, but what about your breath? Not a problem. I've got PK.
After you eat, have some PK. PK has that clean, fresh taste. And a freshness burst that refreshes your breath.
PK has a freshness burst that refreshes your breath. PK.
Broken fraps. A problem with my go-go-mobile. Go-go-mobile? Problem with my go-go-mobile, and I was wondering if G-O-G-G-O. Problem with my go-go-mobile, and yeah? Yeah? No, not the dark. Not the dark. So they always think it's the dark. It's a weird ripper.
A special movie presentation.
I've treated nearly 22,000 different patients.
Facing his deepest fear.
You're being discarded.
And his greatest challenge.
I don't want it.
The return of Marcus Wilby, MD, 8:30 Friday on 9.
You know, all the work we put into this program, you know, we have a transmitter built by people overseas working years and years of expertise. We have people all around the world. We have machines here. We have an expensive foyer. Have lots of people working on this, and we get phone calls saying, Mr. Robertson has got stains on his hands. Well, I've been painting, you see, and you can't always get it off, and why should I? That's the answer. You're happy now? And poor Yana gets things like, I don't like Yana's dress, you see. I mean, you realise how, I know when you sit there in the lounge room, and after a while you begin to look around the set here, what's that? Why is the clock, for example, someone said, why is it not working? It does work, we just haven't wound it. I mean, do you understand sometimes we worry that you have access to a television set and a phone? I think it should be either one or the other. A telephone, say, and then no television, so you can't read. You see, I mean, I did try to get it off my hands. It doesn't mean I'm grubby or anything. I'm one of the most clinically, aesthetically sterile people I know, and I mean that in the nicest sense, although I didn't have the operation. So really, sometimes I will read out some of the phone calls and you realise that really, if you don't like Yana's dress, you might the next night, right? If you don't like the clock moving, we might move the hands for you sometimes. You see, it does worry us that you do have this access. It's the other hand, not this one, gotcha. Now we have a rubber stamp in our office. It simply says, Compass Airlines could soon be flying again. We've almost run out of ink.
More than 200 people with a stake in the survival of Compass poured into the meeting, all keen to hear details of the rival bid. Making the $55 million cash offer, private Sydney company Ostfin, owned by Duke Minks, a former business associate of Brian Gray. Underwriting the bid, the Pacific Island nation of Nauru. The consortium claims its offer is better value for Compass, despite being rejected by provisional liquidator Ian Ferrier, who's backed the Southern Cross bid.
Once we have a binding agreement to buy Compass, we could be up or operational in 90 to 120 days.
The only offering to Compass shareholders is a 10% discount on any flights.
I think I've been conned today.
The shareholders are no value to Ostfin at all, are they?
Some saw benefits in Ostfin's proposals.
That's a hell of a lot better than Southern Cross have come up with so far.
Ostfin says it will introduce smaller planes, more regular, cheaper flights and honour all Compass tickets. The Ostfin offer would include keeping Compass headquarters here in Brisbane, giving job priority to the airline's former employees. Mr Minks also took his offer to Queensland Treasury officials, despite the state government's commitment to provide $10 million support to Southern Cross. Compass's future now rests on federal court approval and a shareholders' vote in June. Ostfin says if it doesn't win the Compass name, it will become the revamped airline's biggest competitor.
Irrespective of what happens to our bid for Compass, that I've agreed with the Minister of Finance for Nauru that we will launch a new airline.
Duke Minks? Duke? It's a bit of a downer when you've spent years in training but can't actually get to do it for real. That's not the reason for a confrontation, but some submariners might require some convincing.
Submariners call it the last hiding place. 500 miles from the North Pole, a frozen white wilderness concealing waters where even now the coldest of Cold War games are still played.
Stationary dive, stationary dive.
Coming to 180 feet.
These are uncertain times for the U.S. submarine community. Their boats are getting older, there aren't any firm plans to build new ones, and although the Russians are still out there, the fear of war is really not.
Well, I think it's an extremely frustrating time to be in our business. You know, it's always frustrating to be in management when the dollars are going down. We're trying to redefine where we're going in the submarine force.
But that battle will be fought above the surface, not hundreds of feet below the polar ice where other threats remain. Viewed from below, a jagged ridge of upside-down mountain peaks called keels present a deadly obstacle course.
Now, how deep have you seen ice go, Captain? Seen ice keels as deep as 130 feet, and I understand that some keels have been measured as deep as 190.
It is 48 below zero on the surface, but a comfortable 68 inside the boat. 18 hours on duty, 6 off, and sailors learn to sleep through anything, even torpedo practice. Once surfaced, the crew hurries to clear the hatch, take on supplies, and slip back into the depths. For this is when a sub is most susceptible, and the Grayling, like much of the U.S. military in this era of cutbacks and peace dividends, is feeling particularly vulnerable.
It's a bit of a moot point when it comes to claiming shipwrecks. Now, some countries wait for foreigners to find the billions of artifacts, and then, once the work is done, they confiscate them. Others deny access, and others don't care. The relatives and friends of the submerged former Fourth Fleet of the Japanese Navy in Truk Lagoon want the rest of the world to simply go away.
For these British divers, it's the last leg of a journey across the globe. A journey to a fascinating adventure, but one dogged by controversy. In water between 30 and 200 feet deep lies the wreckage of the Japanese Fourth Fleet. More than 60 warships, 250 aircraft, and the remains of hundreds of servicemen. The attack on the huge naval base at Truk Lagoon marked the beginning of the end of the Japanese domination of the North Pacific. Nearly 50 years on, a remarkable war museum under the sea. Among the artifacts, an operating table from a hospital ship. Even documents somehow preserved. This Japanese fighter plane had never been used, say marine archaeologists. Naval guns silent forever. Elsewhere, tons of ammunition. But it's tampering with the remains of the men that went down with the machines that particularly upset the Japanese. Veterans believe the diving, which is rapidly becoming an industry, should stop, and the site be declared a war grave, like the wrecks of Pearl Harbor. The divers disagree.
If human remains or other artifacts, whether personal or machines of war, were actually brought to the surface, then perhaps people might feel a little aggrieved over it. As long as the authorities here are quite happy about the diving and the divers conform to an acceptable code of conduct, then I think the situation should be left exactly as it is.
My own personal opinion, I think it's very, neat to come out and see this type of thing. So I don't think it's bad at all.
It's dangerous as well as controversial. Here, one member of the team squeezes through the hatch of a submarine, where in the past 2 divers became trapped and died. But as long as the relics remain, there will be divers to explore them, much to the disapproval of relatives and colleagues of those who lie below the surface of Truk Lagoon.
You can understand the Japanese, can't you? I don't understand them. Not the Japanese, those people. The funny ones. After the break, 25 years of TDT.
On Burke's Backyard this week, we'll show you how to put in a fabulous skylight in your own home yourself.
We'll show you one of the world's best yellow flowering plants, and our celebrity gardener is Ernie Sigley. That's Burke's Backyard, 7:30 this Friday night on Channel 9.
You know, 1 in every 5 microwaves in the world is a Samsung? Hold it there. Buy your mum a Samsung Time Saver oven for Mother's Day and she gets this free brass picture frame. Plus, she could win one of 5 trips to any city in the world. Or one of 20 Samsung portable CD audio systems. Remember, Samsung Time Saver ovens are so durable and reliable, they're almost indestructible. Well, I did say almost.
House hunting again? Then stop. Why buy a second-hand house when you can own a brand new complete home package from Dale Alcock Homes? Choice of design, choice of suburb, from as little as $106 per week. This includes carpets, vertical blinds, built-in robes, gas appliances, carport, driveway, fencing, brick paving and site works. Phone or visit a Dale Alcock display centre this weekend.
Dale Alcock Homes. Complete homes, complete package, complete builder.
Preen, pre-wash stain remover, is effective and powerful. Preen removes tough stains and is available in 2 fresh fragrances. So try hard-working Preen. No other trigger works better. Preen, the great unstainer.
First, there was Big Band Classics. Now may we present Big Band Classics Volume 2. 22 original recordings from a time when big bands played with showmanship and elegance. Over an hour of timeless masterpieces from Duke Ellington, the legendary Glenn Miller, Benny Goodman, and the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra. Big Band Classics Volume 2. It's available now.
Let's Rodeo! The thrills, spills and skills of the Stampede Arena Rodeo this Saturday at the State Equestrian Centre, Brigadoon. The nation's greatest indoor rodeo has hit town. Watch in superb indoor comfort as Australia's best mix it with the Stampede String. Great family entertainment with live country and western music. Rodeo action 7 to 10 p.m, hoedown to midnight. Stampede Arena Rodeo this Saturday night at the State Equestrian Centre, Brigadoon. Proceeds to Appeal-a-thon.
It's really hard to take any man with the name Peach seriously. That's what I used to think. But in the old days of television, Bill Peach was the apple of almost everyone's eye as the compere of TDT this day tonight in New South Wales. Each state had its own front man, but Bill Peach and his vacuum flask reminded us all that it was 7:30 and television was at last beginning to express itself. It's all in the book by Bill Peach. I must actually firstly just put this here. You mustn't open it. Apparently it's a rude one. Remember?
Oh,
remember the flask business?
Do I remember? It looks slightly different from that.
Yeah, don't open it. How did the flask happen? I mean, was it a conscious effort by you to suddenly put it on your desk?
No, it wasn't. I can't even recall. I did feel the need of some sustenance, and of course, the minute I did it, quite unthinkingly, they started to widen the shot and included it in my desk. My desk was very cluttered.
Yeah.
Yours is a very clean desk,
Yes.
Clive. Mine was a very filthy desk.
Yeah.
The thing was there, and it sort of would be in... I didn't sort of drink on camera and so on, but it was in the corner of the shot, and people started saying, what is that? Then they'd say, what's in that?
Yes.
And I wouldn't tell them, and it became the standing mystery of television.
Because it brings up an interesting point, doesn't it? The ABC in those days would never mention names. That would have been a vacuum flask, not a thermos flask, wouldn't it?
I called it a thermos flask, but they would have said yes,
Vacuum.
yes.
Dear Mr. Peach, this is the so-and-so at the copyright office. Would you please refer to it as a vacuum flask?
Would have been standard ABC issue.
Yeah, which brings up
flask.
a point that you make in your book about those early days about when you had to review something but not mention the brand names.
That was... I have made the point in the book that many programs, like The Investigators, so many things. In fact, we came out of... People said, you're tonight. And we said, no, we're not tonight. It's not going to be a variety show. There's not actually singing and dancing in this. Yeah. It's this day tonight. And that caused some controversy. I was told, oh, it's a good name. It'll become TDT. So I said, it sounds like an insecticide, you know. Yes. And I suggested, should be more serious, the Nation Tonight.
Yeah.
And Alan Martin said, well, that'll be TNT. And he said, that'll be good if it's a real bomb.
Yeah, good point. So whose idea was it? Was it a person's idea?
The idea of the program, it was West Australia, where all the good ideas come from, Clive. It was a guy called Ken Watts. who was an ABC executive, a rare executive, who actually thought the ABC should get into trouble and throw a few bombs.
Great.
And he was a man who politicked to the good of the country, I think, in that he was actually going to do something that was going to be worthwhile, and to the good of the ABC.
Yeah.
And he got it there, yes. They started in Tasmania. They call it line-up.
Yeah.
They piloted it. It went well, and from there on it was all go.
You're very mild on camera, very quietly spoken and what have you, and sort of the perfect gentleman, the boy next door. So what did you put your appeal down to?
I always wondered, somebody said quietly spoken Bill Peach is going to be the compere, and I thought, should I be a loudly spoken compere? You know, if I do, will they tune down the volume? I don't know. It didn't make sense to me to be... I mean, television is like that, isn't it? It's better to be... I don't think you should shout at people.
Yeah.
I thought what people expect is that if you're talking to them, that you're going to talk to them as if you were sitting next to them.
Mr. Cool.
Mr. Cool.
Were you always cool? Were there some nights that you'd rather forget, apart from the first night, which I gather was the most forgettable, wasn't it?
I was terrified on the first night.
What did you say first up?
I said, well, the first thing, and something horrible, I thought, was they made me come on before the opening titles on the first night and introduce the program before it had begun and read some phony telegrams. So the first thing I said was, we have had some telegrams of congratulation. A lie. We hadn't had any telegrams of congratulation, and I read them. They were fearfully unfunny, and one of them was from the chairman of the ABC, Dr. Darling, saying, you have nothing to fear but fear itself. And that was wrong, because we had Dr. Darling to fear for a start. When he heard me reading out this telegram, he apparently went into a purple rage. He hadn't sent it, and he thought this was lese majesty.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, I was off to a bad start before we even played that title tune.
When you look at current affairs, and I assume you do occasionally,
I
right?
sure
Even
do.
for nostalgia.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think's lacking now that was there then?
I wouldn't want to pretend that we were a magic miracle and that everyone gets it wrong now. In many ways, they do it much better now. I mean, we were very inept technically, and I think that there are senses in which some programs, say Four Corners, is able to devote the time to investigate things and has then got the legal strength to carry them through, which I wished we'd had in those days.
Were you sued often?
We were sued a lot.
Did you pay out much?
More than once.
Yeah.
More than once, but probably the big problem then was that a stop writ really did stop things.
That's right.
Whereas now I think they tend to sort of say, well, go for it, you know, and if they feel strongly that they have the ground, they will persist. But I think there was one area in which we did do things that they perhaps are a bit more reluctant now, and that was the element of satire. We were very prepared to send up our lords and masters.
I remember The Last Supper.
Yes. Yeah. The word was goff.
That's right.
And there were many things. You remember the raid on ASIO became an episode from the FBI with Lionel Murphy as guest star.
Yes.
Things like that, they tend not to do in current affairs now. They tend to think, well, that's going to be another program.
It also brings up an interesting point that perhaps you people were both amused and bemused by what you were doing and the medium of television. Now it seems it's so slick that the people who think that you have to be serious to be taken seriously, whereas you people were willing to put a foot in each camp. Is that not true?
Yes.
You had a bit of fun.
I think so. I think there's a lot of, I used the word gravitas before, but I think people tend to be a little bit heavy now, perhaps, when it's not necessarily, you don't have to be like that to be taken seriously. We were prepared to have people think that we were raving lunatics, I will admit that. Because television was different then. We were the only nightly show on air for 5 years, so we really were making the rules. You could get away with things.
You did have one other thing in your favour. You had the Whitlam years, where you had those so many characters in the cabinet. Agreed? You had perfect fodder for even straight interviews. Now they're rather staid and they're rather serious, and they just have a go at each other. I mean, they were great days, weren't they?
They were. I will say the great thing about TDT perhaps that was in our favour is it didn't start with the Whitlam years. We began with the sort of end of the Menzies era and the culmination of the Liberal government in Billy McMahon. And then we had the Whitlam years, and we were in the middle of them. They were years of great turmoil, of course. Vietnam was a most divisive and violent issue. We were full of protesters. You know, we had draft dodgers in the studio. We had violent protests going on in the streets. Things were really happening, and the 60s and 70s were years of turmoil and dissent. And to a degree, TDT reflected all of that. And we were part of, we aroused violent emotions for and against us, as people felt generally.
How much influence did the politicians in Canberra or in Macquarie Street exert?
They exerted a great deal of influence, probably not as much as they would have liked to, but a great deal more than they should have. Politicians weren't even used to coming on camera and being questioned. They tended to think, who are these impertinent imps? Yes, how dare you ask me that, yes, sir? And in fact, often refused to appear. And we were the first to say, the minister declined to appear. This is the chair he would have sat in had he appeared, and these are the questions we would have asked him had he appeared.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And we put it to the opposition, who, of course, were very eager to appear. Yes. And when people would say to the minister, that was a fine non-appearance you made last night, he changed his mind. Within weeks, they began to appear.
I did enjoy TDT. I enjoyed the few years I saw you there. But why aren't you doing something like that now? What happened? Who got tired of whom?
I did TDT for 8 years, every night.
Yeah.
And
that
I know,
answers it, doesn't it?
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, people are usually dragged out with chains, but I'd had enough. I don't know how many thousands of nights that was. I loved the idea of getting out of that studio. I'd seen that wall enough, and I'd seen the stories coming out. And I went to do documentaries, travelogue, and since then, travel, for some reason or other, beckoned me further and further along that path, and now I'm basically a writer, a traveller, a travel editor, a travel operator, and if television comes around again, I guess it'll be, something like that.
Good to see you, Bill. Good to see you.
Good to
you're
see
looking
you,
very well. Thank you very much.
Considering how it was all a quarter of a century ago,
yes,
I'm holding together.
You're looking terrifically well. So go away. Phil Peach. And the book is available now, is it?
The book is available now and being launched tomorrow night by one of the central figures in it, Gough Whitlam, at the 729 Club.
He's always charming. The 729 Club.
Yes.
Oh, golly.
One of the central places in it.
I'm feeling old. So there, the books will be available soon, or as the ABC says, at selected stores and ABC shops. I'll be back after this.
Nobody brings it closer to your world than Peter Waltham and National 9 News.
They teamed up to tackle the world of sports corruption. Now they've got one shot to get the goods on the bad guys. Bruce Willis, Damon Wayans, the last Boy Scout.
When you're buying a home, you get hit with all kinds of fees. Application fees, legal fees, valuation fees, commitment fees. They even hit you with...
Hang on. There's a bank that charges just one fee on their flexible home loans.
Really? Which bank? Ooh, glad I asked.
Here's some really great news from Victory. This is Victory's 28-hour marathon sale. Your last chance to buy Victory quality products at $19.91 prices. Venetians from $87. Verticals from $89. Hollands from $54. And there are awnings and pleated blinds. This is Victory's Australia-wide 28-hour marathon sale. And this is Victory's Australia-wide number.
Victory, the winning guys. 131399.
All these delicious meals use lean pork cuts from the 13 approved by the National Heart Foundation. New fashion pork, the other white meat.
Gordonsons are about to unveil the latest in cycling technology.
We're about to uncover the perfect leisure bike, and at Gordonsons, we'll build it to suit you. Are you ready?
Ready for a test ride at any friendly Gordonson store.
Very quickly here, 2 Japanese companies have developed a thermometer which can be stuck into a person's ear and measure body temperature in less than 3 seconds. That quickly, it's called the Metherol thermometer. Nurses can reduce their working time, said a spokesman for the place there. It's called a tympanic thermometer. Goodness, stick into your ear, eh? I'm sorry, I should say that slowly. You stick it into a person's ear. You probably thought, that's not new. If it is any of our business, Sir Sidney Nolan turned 75 today. He's still keen on painting.
To celebrate Sir Sidney's birthday, the National Gallery has drawn an exhibition from the artist's private collection covering 60 years of his life. Most of the works have never been seen publicly before.
How does it feel being here, surrounded by almost 6 decades of your work?
Oh, it feels, how can I put it, that I'd like another couple.
Nonetheless, in his 75 years, Sir Sidney Nolan, self-proclaimed extremist, has achieved a far higher international profile than his equally provocative contemporaries.
Younger artists, including Nolan, set up the Contemporary Art Society as a real slap in the face to conservative Melbourne, and these are an example of that. And his art has always been a bit like that. He's always known it's going to provoke some people.
Who did you upset the most?
Oh, I upset the critics, upset some members of the public. I think somebody came in when I was out at lunchtime and put some green paint on and put some eyes into some abstract kind of figures I had, put these eyes into it, daubed with green paint. And
how did you react to that?
Well, I've kept it because it's quite a special thing. You see, that's the one that's more interesting than any of the others.
The 75th anniversary exhibition is dominated by Nolan's largest work ever, a 50-metre-long series of panels known as The Snake.
This is the third of these enormous works that you've done. Why the preoccupation with the gigantic?
You know, having been in Central Australia and all that kind of thing, it's an enormous continent, really. So I suppose I've tried to do a large statement to try and express myself. The Aboriginals, you know, had time to work out a phenomenally subtle, detailed mythology, which is fascinating, actually, which you don't realise when you're at school or anything, because you don't see it. But when you go up and see the environment that they came from and what they've done with it over so many thousands of years, it's, you know, it causes you to want to do something about it.
Now resident in London, Sir Sidney is planning a series of paintings based on his boyhood memories in Victoria 60 to 70 years ago.
I've had this abstract phase been going on for the last 5 years or so. But I think now I'm going back to try and do something about my boyhood again and young men, which will be a more narrative form, be all the jobs I had in Melbourne on the goldfields and hamburger shops, you know, being a cook and all the things I want to try and paint, you know, while I've got time left.
Jason Cameron, The World Tonight.
He has a nice touch, hasn't he? Both of them. You might have seen those unusual pictures of the picture of singer Annie Lennox that we showed you last night at the Freddie Mercury Memorial Concert. She doesn't look well. There are people in hospital who look like that. Now, Annie has been quiet recently, and we might wonder what.
She's the Red October.
For the first time on television.
Captain's name is Ramius.
A great day, comrades.
What have you stores?
It's like a jet engine for the water.
The Hunt
Engage the silent drop.
is on.
Our own fleet doesn't know our full potential.
Sean Connery.
We sail into history.
Alec Baldwin.
Ramius might be trying to defect.
You're just an analyst. What can you possibly know what goes on in this mine?
I know Ramius.
And Sam Neill in the blockbuster premiere of the year, The Hunt for Red October, Sunday 8:30 on 9.
And the rhythm of life is a powerful beat. Puts a tingle in your fingers, tingle in your feet. Rhythm in the playroom, rhythm in the street. Yeah, the rhythm of life is a powerful beat. Rhythm of life is a powerful beat. Puts a tingle in your fingers, tingle in your feet. Rhythm in the playroom, rhythm in the street. Yeah, the rhythm of life.
Only Dulux has the inspiration, the ideas, and the color solutions to bring your home to life. Bring your home to life with Dulux.
If there's one thing you can do without, it's a kitchen you can't keep clean. Like coffee getting into your new tiles.
Seal & Cove solves the problem. Just stick down the base, snap on the waterproof cover, and those problem areas are permanently solved. Seal & Cove gives a fabulous finish and is easy to clean. It's available from these leading hardware stores. Another problem solved by Homelux.
Seal & Cove. Here's to it.
Whoa, what was that? A bird? A plane? A UFO?
No, the DeLorean, the time-traveling car from
Back to the Future!
On display at Auto Expo 92. For 7 incredible days, you can meet the DeLorean, plus a galaxy of stars, the newest cars, motorbike, accessories, fantastic, futuristic, outrageous, brilliant. You won't believe your eyes when you go back to the future at Burswood Superdome, April 21 to 27.
It's beautiful here.
Yeah, I know.
Trash and Treasure moves to a new home this Sunday to the Orchard 3B car park. Lots more bays, more room, undercover, cosy in winter, cool in summer. Sellers admitted from 6 a.m, entry from Murray Street, only $5 a bay. And buyers admitted from 9 a.m. with tons of undercover parking off Elder Street. Meet Flapper and Humphrey and Percy. Lots of entertainment and fun. Trash and Treasure in the new venue, the Orchard 3B car park this Sunday. An appeal-a-thon project conducted by Floreat Lions and proudly supported by Radio 6PR and City of Perth Parking.
Here's the weather for tomorrow. There's some people, well, they're in Nepal, are they? Some people reinserting bees into a hive 4,000 feet in the air. Isn't it amazing what they all do on weekends? Now, tomorrow night, Beauty and the Beast, 3 of them, 1 of me. It seems a reasonable contest. Good night.